J1. So I played this a YouTube songs where you can feel the fall in Japan. So if you're interested, I will put the link so you can listen to it when you have time. Let's go over the vocab. So these are the vocabs, 14 of them total. So I want you guys to write down the entire vocab 3 times each. Make sure some of them like have circles, some of them like home. A lot of students tend to cross over these 2 parallel lines. Make sure you do not cross over that line. And then 教科書、辞書, these combination sounds, make sure ya, you, yo are small.So let's go over the vocabs. 鉛筆、鉛筆、鉛筆、紙、紙、紙、本、本、本、教科書、教科書、教科書、辞書、辞書、辞書、お金、お金、お金、写真、写真、写真、帽子、帽子。You hear the 帽子 more than 帽子, but you say it 帽子 and then you write it as 帽子. So be careful on that. 帽子、帽子。ゴミ、ゴミ。カバン、カバン、カバン。時計、時計。Here is the same thing. You write it as 時計, but you say 時計、時計。傘、傘。鉛筆削り、鉛筆削り。ゴミ箱、ゴミ箱、ゴミ箱。So make sure to write them down. I did the review slide with the students where this is a Google Sugoroku game. Students were divided into groups and then did the review for the chapter test. And Hirakana review quizzes.And this one is the ages. So ages in Japanese are kind of tricky, depends on which number you're talking about. 1 year old is 1歳, 8歳, but 1歳, 2歳, 3歳, 4歳, 5歳, 6歳, 7歳, 8歳. The one that are not listed here are the one that you just count as normal numbers and you just put 歳 at the end.So 1歳、8歳 are kind of unique because we don't say 1歳. Instead of 1歳, we say 1歳. Skipping sound right there. So make sure these are small too, okay? And same thing goes with 8歳、8歳、10歳. So 10, 20 years old in Japan are very unique. You consider as adult when you become a 20.So you have a becoming adult ceremony that you attend with wearing kimono. So 20歳 is a very special age. And we don't say 20歳. We say 20歳. So 30 is 30歳. And then 40歳, 50歳. I hope you can hear the skipping sound for the whenever we have a zero at the end. So 30, 40, 50, 60. 30歳、40歳、50歳、60歳、70歳、80歳. Those are the skipping sounds. So make sure you have a skipping sound for when you have zero. The number in between those 0 to 0, for instance, 12, we say 22歳。ごめん。Sorry. 12歳、12歳、15歳。15歳. So these gonna become a u instead of small t. So what you have to be careful about if you have a 0 on the 1 digits and then you have small t, and then if you have a number in between you have u. So for instance, 22 is 22歳. 45 years old is 45歳. 45歳. So if you are talking about 40 years old, then 40歳. But if you have 45, then 45歳. Okay?So make sure you practice this one, and there's an answer which goes like this. So maybe you want to pause it before and then go over yourself. And we went over the family vocab. So in Japanese, if you were talking about your own family, these are the words that you're going to use. If you're talking about someone else's family, this is the one that you're going to use. For instance, 家族 versus ご家族. If it's your family, then 家族. If you're talking about someone else's family, then you say ご家族. 父、お父さん、 母、お母さん、兄、お兄さん。So you have に right there. 姉、お姉さん、お姉さん、弟、弟さん、妹、妹さん。So you have more respect on someone else's family, so you put the go in the front, and then instead of 父, you say お父さん. So さん at the end, and then 妹、妹さん。弟さん、妹さん。When I call a student's name, I always put the son at the end. It's kind of like that. You have more respect when you call on someone else's family. And one thing to note, when you're talking to someone about your dad, use 父。私の父は65歳です。とかね。And then when addressing to your father, you call him お父さん。お父さん元気ですか Right? Those kind of things. If you're talking to dad, then you will say お父さん。If you're talking about your dad to someone else, then you say 父。私の父は。Okay? And these are some good map that represent family tree. So 私, then 姉、兄、and then 弟、妹、父、母、おじいさん、おばあさん。If you're talking about someone else's family, then you go お姉さん、お兄さん、弟さん、妹さん、お父さん、お母さん、おじいさん、おばあさん。As you can see, おじいさん and おばあさん doesn't change, right? おじいさん and おばあさん。The one that you're going to change are the お父さんとかお母さんとかね。So be careful on that. And this is my own family. 私、主人、主人の母、主人の父、私の父、私の母、私の主人の兄、私の主人の姉、私の妹、私の母、私のおばあさん。So one thing that I told my students about a importance of for instance, 主人 is husband. 主人 is a husband. But if you add right there in between, 主人 if you say 主人 means a prisoner. So importance of is huge in Japanese. Small 2, large 2, that will change completely different meaning to a word. So make sure your combination sound and those are important. When you have to put it in, make sure you put it in. It turn out to be totally different word that you don't want, right? Because if you're talking about husband, definitely not talking about the prisoner. Okay, so 主人 versus 主人. In this case, 主人. Okay, and then this is another family tree. If we are talking about my family, then 兄、姉、弟、妹、母、父、おじさん、おばさん. If you're talking about uncle and aunt, you put おじ、おば, and cousins are いとこ. おじ、おば and いとこ. And then, if you're talking about someone else's family, still, けいこ さん 's family, 弟さん、妹さん、お姉さん、お兄さん、お父さん、お母さん、おじさん、おばさん、おじさん、おばさん. So you put someone else's family's uncle, you will say おじさん、おばさん, and then いとこ still the same. But おじさん、おばさん is, you can use it as someone else's aunt and uncle, but also when you describe middle-aged man. So middle-aged woman and middle-aged man can be described in おじさん and おばさん. So what happened is when you have a aunt or uncle super young, right? Sometimes because of the family members, sometimes you turn out to be a uncle when you're like 10. And if some other people will call you おじさん, then it could be both uncle and middle-aged man. So sometimes elementary school kids are teased by other kids if they are found out that they're uncle, because that means middle-aged man. But that's another thing. Another thing is と versus そして. と is used between nouns and words. So 父と母, 紙と鉛筆. When you have between a noun or words, you use と as a and. If you have a between sentences, use only at the beginning of sentence. In English, you don't start sentence as a and or a but in Japanese, it is okay as long as you have two sentences that make sense. Okay? So for instance, in this case, 私の家族は5人です. I have 5 people in my family. And I have 3 siblings.そして兄弟は3人です。私の家族は5人です。そして兄弟は3人です。So if you have between sentences, you use そして for and. If you have a word, between word and if you want to say and, then you use と。So let's take a look at this one. Pause for a second and try to figure out which one's gonna be と and which gonna be そして。Okay, I hope you figure out, you paused it, okay? So the answer should look like this. 私の父と母です。My dad and mom. So these are just a word, so you put と。私の家族は4人です。My family, I have 4 people in my family. And そして siblings, I have 2 of them. あなたのおじいさんとおばあさんはどこですか？ Where is your grandfather and grandmother? So between a word, so you're gonna put と。あなたの家族は何人ですか？ How many people in your family? And how many siblings do you have? So そして because these are between sentences. I hope you guys got that one right. And let's review some counters. This is the paper, so 1枚、1枚、2枚、3枚、4枚。Try pause here and then review your round general counter. Remember the song? 1つ、2つ、3つのハンバーガー、4つ、5つ、6つのハンバーガー、7つ、8つ、9つのハンバーガー、とのハンバーガー。むしゃむしゃむしゃむしゃハンバーガーはおいしい。むしゃむしゃむしゃむしゃハンバーガーはおいしい。むしゃむしゃむしゃむしゃハンバーガーはおいしい。ハンバーガーはおいしいね。Okay, so let's go over the answer. This one is 1つ、2つ、そう2つ、3つ、3つ、1つ、2つ、3つ、4つ、5つ、6つ。So this will be 6つ。3つ、2つ、4つ、1つ、5つ。Make sure those are big 5つ。4つ and 3つ you have small つ in between.And this is a review for the age. Pause it and let's go over that in a second. It goes like 10歳、62歳、66歳、13歳、15歳、12歳、40歳、42歳、1歳。I hope you got all of them correct. I will see you guys next week. Sayonara.